Atari, as Angry Joe would say, you done fucked it up. Yes, this rant is going to be about the new installment of Roller Coaster Tycoon, which by looking at the trailers and the screenshots, it's called Roller Coaster Tycoon World. Before I begin with everything, I want to make a disclaimer. I am a big fan of the Roller Coaster Tycoon franchise. I enjoyed Roller Coaster Tycoon 1, 2, and 3, and I gave each game long well-spent playtimes. And I want everyone to watch the entire video before posting comments criticizing my rant, otherwise you'll most likely make yourself look stupid. And I know other people have already made rants on this game, but I'm going to elaborate a lot more than the other rants I have seen on YouTube. Okay, now on to my rant on Roller Coaster Tycoon World. It's been over a decade since the last Roller Coaster Tycoon installment on the PC, not counting the expansion packs or the other platform versions. That game was Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. I'm going to be ranting on how this next game is most likely going to suck. This is just a prediction, but with all the evidence we've gathered with the footage, concept art, the trailers, and Atari's track record in the media with this next game, it is very likely that this game is going to be garbage. Here is a list of topics and things that I will go through that will prove my point. First thing will be about previous games and their features, which is Roller Coaster Tycoon 1, Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, and 3 with expansions. Number 2 will be the graphics. Number 3, engine with the mechanics, previous game references, physics, and features. Number 4, marketing, which will be talking about the screenshots, trailers, and blogs. Number 5, game development. Number 6, value standards in current generation. Number 7, current reception. Number 8, references of AAA game franchises that have been ruined. And the last topic will be about the references of spiritual successors of ruined AAA franchises. All in all, let's start with the first in this list by bringing up the previous games, when they came out and what made the games good. The first Roller Coaster Tycoon was made by Chris Sawyer and released in 1999, the original theme park creating simulation game. This was the first game of its kind that most people in the world played, and they enjoyed it. They wanted to express their creativity and create their own park, the same way people wanted to make and manage their city in SimCity. What you're able to do in the game is creating custom coasters, colors, and trains, place anything in the park area, earn to unlock unique parks, complete missions to succeed, mechanics and physics for rides, challenge, i.e. reasonable limitations, and save your parks and coaster designs. Now let's go to the next game. Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, made by the same developer and released in 2002. Of course it used the same game engine as the last game, similar to Doom 2 using the same engine as Doom 1. And of course they took away the earn to unlock challenge, but it added great new amazing things to the game that the first one didn't have. Parks based on real parks, i.e. Six Flags, more roller coaster types, scenery creativity like making buildings, save custom rides with scenery, new rides, new paths, more new sounds, make your own park, a roller coaster designer, manage custom rides data, mod support, and more add-ons. Not counting the expansion packs because all they did was add new themed scenery for different cultures, countries, mythologies, and timelines. The quote-unquote new coasters were just themed coasters of already existing rides from the vanilla Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. Now let's move on to Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, made by a different developer, Frontier, and released in 2004. That's 2 years after Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 was released, which is quite an impressive advancement. Amazing game for its time, not as classic as the previous games, but it brought new things to the Roller Coaster Tycoon franchise. An amazing 3D engine perspective to the game. Although there are some things different from the previous games, it does give the previous games the honor it deserves, and also in vice versa. It has a 3D perspective, freedom to customize the camera using 4 modes including the classic isometric mode, ride the rides using Coaster Cam, elaborate tutorial system, all coasters are unique, more categorized rides, flexible terrain modifications, including land and texture, sandbox mode, no limits to scenery added to the ride designs, no limits to how many different items you can have at once, the Earn to Unlock challenge is back, create your own guests, high mod support, convert most rides from the previous Roller Coaster Tycoon games, fireworks, unique expansion packs soaked in wild, no clone coasters like in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 expansions, and more. People liked these games with originality and how each next game advanced in the quality that they deserved. Now, I might go in a tangent with these other games with the Roller Coaster Tycoon license IP, but this is when the franchise really started to go downhill fast. There was Roller Coaster Tycoon 3D, which was just a dumbed down Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 on the 3DS, a platform that shouldn't even have a Roller Coaster Tycoon 3D building game. And unsurprisingly, it got many negative reviews. The game had a poor perspective, especially with the construction system and how limited a device can handle a game like this. Then Roller Coaster Tycoon 4 was announced. For mobile, another device that doesn't fit having a Roller Coaster Tycoon game. And that mobile version didn't have any attention to detail whatsoever. It was worse than the 3DS version. Dull, cartoony, no gravity physics with coasters, just casually and effortlessly place rides and build coasters with little to no regards of creativity, realism, accomplishment, and presentation as opposed to what the previous games were, let alone the first game. The worst part of the game was the incredibly pointless microtransactions. There were microtransactions that even cost up to over $100. I'm not kidding. And the game definitely got the negative ratings that it deserved. Even for a mobile game, it failed miserably. And this mobile game was most likely to be a cash grab to get ready for the official next PC game that I'm about to talk about. Which the cash grab part shouldn't even happen in the first place. Compare that to Coaster Crazy, also an iOS app made by the same developers as Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, except they made a reasonable game like this better than Roller Coaster Tycoon 4 mobile, and without ever using the same treasured licensed game. Now to give a message after all that I've talked about, dear developers and the publishers of the Roller Coaster Tycoon license, when you have a worldwide popular game franchise that had multiple very positive ratings in the previous game installments, you have to learn from the previous games, and you have to make the new game surpass all of the previous games. This brings us to talk about their latest media update, which is the gameplay reveal trailer. This brings me to topic number 2, the graphics. Let's recap, shall we? Both Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 and 2 had the same graphics engine, but adding new things in the second game, similar to Doom 1 and Doom 2. Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 engine came out in 1999. Then, 5 years later, in 2004, we were given a 3D perspective experience with Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. For a game for that caliber in the PS2 generation, and a theme park building simulation game, the graphics and physics were decent at the time. Now we have a game coming out in 2015 or later, and the graphics in the new reveal trailer look worse than what we saw in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. This is an example of why a game with this type of graphics coming out of 2015 is going to be garbage. It's a huge ripoff. The bullcrap we saw in the trailer look inferior compared to what we saw in the screenshots released last year of 2014. And it looks like the game has been modified from Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. I'll talk more about this graphics confusion later. Now I know some of you Roller Coaster Tycoon fanboys are probably going to tell me, graphics aren't important, the gameplay is. I find it very ironic that you say that because here's 4 things you idiots need to know. First, I already have Roller Coaster Tycoon 1, 2, and 3 in my collection. The reason why I don't care about the graphics in those games is simply because all those games are over 10 years old, and the price I paid at the time was reasonable when I got them on Steam. Same reason why I still play Terraria. Second, it's freaking 2015. It's the next generation era of gaming. We're supposed to have impressive graphics, especially for this type of game. Which brings me to my third thing. It's Roller Coaster Tycoon, a AAA licensed franchise. A popular franchise like this having a new game is supposed to be on par with this generation of gaming. Here's the fourth thing. The game in the trailer looks like the engine used in the game was ripped from Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Which brings me to the third topic, the engine. Now you guys should realize that the in-game trailer and the screenshots look like that Roller Coaster Tycoon world is using the same engine from Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, only they modified it a bit, or they didn't modify it at all. Or they just ripped some elements from that game, which is lazy work, and it's not reasonable with a game that came out 10 years later after the latest official PC title. And guys, don't say, oh, Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 and 2 have the same engine. Shut up, you idiots. I already explained why this is reasonable, because those two games were 3 years apart starting with 1999, and how the second game had more stuff added to it. Now back to Roller Coaster Tycoon World. Just look at the mechanics, how the people walk on the paths, how everything is placed in a blocky, grid-like form, nothing that evolved from the last PC title. We expected to see a curving, flexible feature with the paths, which we did not get in this game coming out in 2015, which is very disappointing. I will later compare this to other games like SimCity. Back to the physics, you see those special effects? The water looks worse in the new trailer, and there wasn't enough screenshots released in 2014 when the game had the first trailer. The special effects sprites may be a bit better with the fire and splashes, but it still looks modified from the last game engine. Barely any different when people were able to make their own firework rocket in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Functionality, you see how those peeps operate, how everything in the trailer is placed? It looks exactly the same as Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Very similar, almost the same at least. However, the developer said that they will have a new engine, and I'll talk about that later. Let's look at the list of features listed on the Steam page of Roller Coaster Tycoon World. Innovative track builder, create the coolest and wildest coasters imaginable with our best track editor ever. Now this may hint us with a 3D spline system, which is cool, but here's the problem. Look at the other theme park coaster building games with this spline system. Here's the biggest examples. No Limits 2 and Theme Park Studio. Roller Coaster Tycoon World better have this flexible spline system, or this game will not succeed with creativity that these two programs had. First time 3D builder. For the first time, tracks can be fully manipulated in 3D. Okay, what does this mean? If the game is saying that people can use the mouse to drag track vertices, then that's fine, but if they're saying that it's the first game in 3D, then that is a lie due to the fact that the first 3D Roller Coaster Tycoon game was Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. But then they should just say this in the innovative track builder feature. Full selection of pre-built park assets. Design your very own park with a plethora of choices with various rides, blah blah blah, decorations and more. Personalize your park by selecting a different preset locations to build the ultimate theme park. Additionally, custom scenery will be available as free update post-launch. Alright, it's a good thing that they're updating by adding new scenery in for free, but this full selection assessment feature has already existed since the first Roller Coaster Tycoon. And this custom scenery free updates just makes me think that this game will be unfinished in release, so they say they will patch it instead of delaying the game. Ride your coasters. Climb aboard and ride your coasters using multiple camera angles, including first person view. Okay guys, if you think I'm bashing the game for having something from the previous games, you're wrong. I'm glad that they're including these features from the previous games, but what I'm saying is that they're not new features. We want to see new things, not just recycled features. Plus it proves my point that this game has a recycled engine rather than a new engine, or ripped things from the previous game. Similar or same features from Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Online and single player modes. Play online with friends or other players by creating and saving new parks in the cloud and joining a theme park company. You can also play on your own in single player mode. Okay, while this may be a new and interesting feature, it's not something specifically for a Roller Coaster Tycoon game. I was expecting new things added to the game mechanics and a new engine. I'm glad they're not doing this always online DRM business practice, and I'll talk about that later on. Run a theme park company. Team up with friends to create and run a theme park company and compete with others worldwide while earning rewards and climbing the global leaderboards. Okay, didn't it already say this in the last feature listed? They should have just put the title as compete against other parks. Other than that, it's just a copy and paste. Play with friends, see the progress of your friends' parks when connected through Steam or Facebook and watch them grow. Invite them to join your company and trade coaster designs. Let me ask the audience something. Did you guys ever upload your Roller Coaster Tycoon park screenshots and coaster designs onto the internet? If Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 had this live online progress feature, I guarantee it would be the exact same thing as what this game is trying to do. I'm starting to think that this game is more focused on the online sharing rather than the standard in-game features. Visit other parks, enter and navigate other parks created by friends, ride and rate their coasters and overall park. Now, I like that feature, being able to rate and comment on other people's works just like you do on YouTube videos and Steam Workshop pages. Wait a minute. I'm going to talk about this later, but I hope I can become a peep and walk around, talk to other players just like in Thrillville, made by Frontier, again same people that made Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. However, I have my doubts that this is what they're talking about. Deformable Terrain, bringing back a classic feature. The terrain will be completely deformable, allowing players to build amazing rides and change the landscape as they do in full 3D. I like how they confirm that it's a classic feature, which means it's existed since the first game, and Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 made it more flexible to make organic shapes, hills, valleys, lakes, etc. Steam trading cards. Collect, trade, or sell Steam trading cards. While this might be a cool Steam feature, again, it's not something new added to the game. It's more of a community feature than a game feature. But where's the achievement feature? I would like to have an achievement saying, build 50 custom roller coasters from scratch in parks, each with an excitement rating of 6 or higher. And the last feature says, full park management, to oversee different aspects of running a park to satisfy your park attendees and maximize your sales. So what does this feature mean? Look at the park rating, how many guests you have, the excitement rating of the park, look at charts, a mini-map, another feature that has existed since the very first game. Guys, all these features have existed since the first game besides the multiplayer aspect. It just further proves my point that this game ripped and recycled the engine from the last game. It seems that the people care more about multiplayer than adding anything new to this game besides the spline system for the track builder. Speaking of splines, remember what I said about the paths? You know how the new SimCity games have that curved road feature? Well, if they say that the new Roller Coaster Tycoon world has this advanced track editor, then why don't we have an advanced path editor to make curves, circles, and creative pathways? I don't see that anywhere in the screenshots or in the trailers. What a disappointment. I'm not done talking about the paths. There's another thing missing. The queue line paths. Where are the queue line paths? Because in these screenshots and in the trailers, I do not see any queue line paths. The first time I noticed they were going to do this was when we saw the gameplay of that stupid Roller Coaster Tycoon 4 mobile application. No queue paths. Another feature missing. And about the park sharing and Steam Cloud feature, there's something missing here. Isn't there supposed to be a Steamworks feature? Because I don't see it anywhere on this list. Where is it? Is this game going to support modding? Because I don't see that feature anywhere. If people are going to go into people's parks, I hope people will also be able to download the mods they have in the parks if this game supports modding. But if that doesn't happen, then it's going to be really disappointing if this game doesn't have mod support, which will be a big feature taken away. How Atari decided just to let this happen and manage the game this way is utterly ridiculous, which brings me to my next topic, the marketing, media content, and management. This will be about how Atari was managing the screenshots, trailers, and when they decided to upload them, and the blogs that they post. Now, the first screenshots we got were these screenshots. Basically, they look like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 with the themes it came out with, but slightly better graphics, but barely. These screenshots came out sometime around or before August of 2014. On the same date, we also get this teaser trailer that literally did tease all of us. We thought the beginning of this trailer was going to be the graphics until we saw at the end of that cliff hill of the coaster dropping. Note how you see the message early 2015. Also note how the Pipeworks logo is in the bottom right hand corner. But if you look very closely in the copyright notices, in the bottom it says 2014 and Pipeworks Software. Then we have this trailer that just came out recently, March 5th, 2015. And this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to ask Atari and the developers this. Who the hell do you have managing and making these trailers? When you make a gameplay teaser trailer, do you know what you're supposed to do with it? You're supposed to have a positive hype and to have the audience an exciting appeal, but you guys had no quality control to make sure of that. Let's take a look at what's wrong with this trailer by again comparing a screen cap of that latest trailer to another screenshot. See the difference in between the 2014 screenshots and this new trailer? They made it look even worse if the time this trailer was made is true. But it's not just that. Compare this to what's in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Even a game that's over 10 years old looks superior to this. Atari and the developers had a lazy team to make this stupid gameplay teaser. Let me list other things wrong with this trailer. The way the gameplay was done in the trailer, the park in the trailer looks like it was done by a 10-year-old. Nope, scratch that. I've made better things in Roller Coaster Tycoon when I was 10. In other words, the park looks like it was unprofessionally made by a 5-year-old. And the fact that only grown men make gameplays for trailers is extremely embarrassing. The rides are casually placed, the themes of the rides are placed at random, the scenery is unorganized, the terrain is bland and flat, the quote-unquote hills that you see aren't hills, they look like scenery. It's pathetic. And it looks like the guy who played this game in the trailer had all of his graphical settings set to very low because... And here's the next problem. You can clearly see that this gameplay footage has lag and low frame rates. I mean, the trailer is so bad, there's not even a 60 FPS on the options when 1080p quality is selected. That's another problem, lazy editing with the trailer. And I'm not the only person who notices these problems. Also, the trailer had poor, childish messages. You're not supposed to do any of this in a teaser, especially a gameplay teaser. Every gameplay teaser has to have the highest capabilities you can show. But instead you show poor performance, sloppy playthrough, bad frame rate, illiterate messages, trick teases, and uploaded a low quality video rendering and formatting.
This movie was bad. I give this movie a D. A D. A D for damn nigga, that movie is terrible.
Now, I'm getting rumors that this new trailer was apparently made in 2014. Well, I find that very hard to believe. Because at the end of the trailer, we can see the credits, and note how you don't see the developer's name or logo either. You just see RCTW Productions. Also, the very first thing you notice is the number 2015. And for some reason, the graphics in the trailer look worse than the screenshots released in 2014. So whether the game was made in 2015 or 2014, someone is lying to us all. And overall, this trailer was a big, giant train wreck. Seriously, whoever thought this was a good idea needs to have their balls kicked. So afterwards, when Atari saw the negative feedback, and they did acknowledge the negative feedback, because if they didn't, they would not have made this big blog post. But before that, they released previous blog posts, because they were too lazy to make this blog post as the first upload, and or they just didn't gather their thoughts yet. Either way, this is probably the biggest damage control that I've ever seen from a gaming company to address the backlash of the fanbase. Note at the end it says RCTW, but it was posted by MATLAB, the Atari administrator. Now, one thing to notice about this blog is that there is no sign of an apology anywhere. It's their quote-unquote explanation, which is actually a giant excuse nonetheless. I'm not going to read this whole thing out loud, and I did read it for myself. I'm just going to shortly describe each paragraph and make a logical and factual response. Not counting the top paragraph, there are about 5 topics, quote-unquote, explaining the trailer and make claims about what they're doing with the game. First, the trailer paragraph basically says that the gameplay in the trailer was pre-alpha. There's also a guy in the YouTube comment section that says that the new trailer was made in 2014, which I call BS because first of all, there is no evidence that the trailer was made in 2014. Second, the person is confusing this trailer with the first Roller Coaster Tycoon World trailer, because that trailer was released during the PAX event. Now back to the blog, they say that it was all pre-alpha. They mention the switch of development teams, they claim they will make under the hood engine work, then they say that's why there's not any significant visual progress on the title. Alright, this quote right here, this is where I hold major suspicions. First off, you know the time span between the gameplay teaser and the first trailer? Secondly, note that when the first trailer was released was the same time when the first screenshots were released. That's about a 7-month time span, and not only that, remember how I said that the first screenshots look better than what is in the gameplay teaser? Also, remember that I've said that the person who recorded the gameplay had all of their settings on low? Between this new trailer and the first trailer, along with the screenshots, this looks like they have made no progress. Not only that, but this 7-month time span, they could have shown a massive progression compared to the last things we have seen. They had more than enough time to push the limits with the new engine that they have. This obviously shows that the developers and publishers are being very lazy with this project. And the fact that this game says it will be released in mid-2015, which means that the latest they can go is at the beginning of July. That's about 4 months away or less, compared to the 7 months that they had to boost every quality they had with this game. I'll talk more about their current engine while reading through this. Then they say they had lots of work and tried to push the capabilities and visuals with their engine. This is most likely a lie since they didn't even show any capabilities with the new trailer they released. Then they claim that we released the trailer to show that the game wasn't finished. This part I call major BS. You know why? Because that statement was not made clear anywhere in the trailer, nor was that made obvious in the description of the video. There was no sign of a disclaimer anywhere saying all gameplay footage in the trailer is pre-alpha. Even other people were pissed off about this and they addressed this to the blog and didn't buy it. Another piece of proof why that quote is most likely BS is that if that statement was the case, then we wouldn't be seeing this quote-unquote very impressed peep, which in actuality he was disgusted as a lot of people were. Then they say Roller Coaster Tycoon is a loved franchise with quality views by so many people, which is obvious. But then they say we wanted to show that the game was functioning. It's like, no shit, Sherlock. Every game that exists, we know that it's supposed to be functioning the way it is. Which is obviously what we were all expecting, but at the same time, that message was not made from the get-go when the trailer was released. Now to their better engine and graphics paragraph. They claim to explore prototypes, they claim to make improvements, and they say they've upgraded from Unity 4.6 to Unity 5 engine. Before I talk about this, I tried to search for the engine that Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 had, and I couldn't find anything. But I guarantee that they did rip some CAD elements from the previous games. I mean, look closely at the peeps in the trailer, and they look no different than the peeps you see in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Not only that, but if you don't know about the Unity 4.6 engine, search the engine and you'll discover the capabilities of the engine. I hope they were able to convert all of their data to this new Unity 5 engine since it's the same engine with upgrades, otherwise they had to rebuild everything. But let me tell you guys something. You know what other games use the Unity 5 engine? City Skylines. That's right, folks. I'm going to be talking about this game later, but don't compare a city building game to RollerCoaster Tycoon, because building a city is much bigger than building a theme park. They are two completely different games. Then they say, our early results are promising. That is complete BS because they already had early results, and in a 7-month time span, we all saw a negative result from what we saw previously. It's just another hint of laziness. Then in the next paragraph, they just make a huge claim that we're going to make it realistic, which is obviously what we all demanded in the first place. I mean, they should already know what Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 was like when we were riding our own roller coasters with those type of graphics. Now here's something I like to see in this paragraph. This is still just a claim, but they say that people will be able to make their own scenery. So here's the hint that the game might support modding. Either that or they will lie to us. If it does, then I still recommend that they add a Steamworks feature. On to their timing paragraph. They say that they will not release the game until it is truly ready. Well, they failed to do that for the teaser trailer, but they also failed to show the right things in the trailer too. Then they say, we have waited for more than 10 years for the next great edition of Roller Coaster Tycoon. I like how they confirmed the age of the last official PC installment, which was Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, not counting the expansion packs. But the part where they say, we've waited, I'm like, no you haven't, you weren't even expecting it. You were doing other things with it. The horrible 3DS version is probable proof. Then they say things like, if the game needs to be put back into the oven, and the team needs the time to craft the experience. Again, the 7-month time span, no new interesting progress has shown, especially compared to Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, which is a time span over 10 years to 9 years. Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 Platinum was released in October 2006. And at their last paragraph, what's next just says, please keep giving us your feedback. We will add more things and upgrades to Roller Coaster Tycoon World. There will be released versions of the game and community events, blah blah blah. The game is very important for us not to fail at it, which is an ironic statement. And that's the end. In conclusion, this blog is nothing more than a teaser blog that ironically came out after a teaser trailer. And, I said it before and I'll say it again, this blog would not exist if that gameplay teaser for Roller Coaster Tycoon World never released and received all the negative feedback. Just like how I wouldn't be making this video if they never posted a horrible gameplay teaser with a blog designed to tease people rather than apologize to them. There are people who didn't buy their message. They kept their suspicions up. Even more so that there is even someone that says MATLAB, the Atari administrator, lied to everyone about the current state of the game previously. Now on to talking about the game development. We all know that the previous Roller Coaster Tycoon developers are not developing the game. The original being Chris Sawyer and Frontier for Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Those people were awesome. Then when Roller Coaster Tycoon World was announced, they said that a different company was developing the game. This came with the first screenshots and the first trailer. Those people were Pipeworks Software. If you don't know who Pipeworks Software is, they are known for making the Godzilla fighting games like Destroy All Monsters, Save the Earth, and Unleashed, and a whole bunch of other random games. But they did make the Devil May Cry HD collection, but they didn't really develop the original game. Now to me, I don't think that Pipeworks Software is the most appropriate development team to make a AAA park building simulator franchise. I would rather you go back to a more familiar developer like Frontier. But then later, in the middle of development, after they posted the first screenshots and trailer, before MATLAB posted his first blog, they switched to another developer to make Roller Coaster Tycoon World. That developer is Area 52. Now let me ask you guys something. Have you even seen these people before? Because I haven't. Hell, I've tried to search these people about previous games they've made, and all I can find is this Star Wars game. In fact, this developer is so obscure that there's not even a Wikipedia page about these people. This is another possibility that Roller Coaster Tycoon World will most likely be a failure. Now, I'm not sure specifically when they switched developers and why they had to switch to a more obscure developer, but nonetheless, this is just inconvenient. It really is. Also, the fact that they had to hire a very obscure company to develop the game suspects the possibility that Atari has very little money in their wallets. I mean, you know how I said that Roller Coaster Tycoon 4 Mobile was a cash grab? That further proves my example. Alright, now after all I've previously talked about, let's go into the current level of value for games today. What year is it, people? It's 2015. What kind of consoles are people playing this year? PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the Wii U. These are supposed to be next generation consoles. Unfortunately, they fail to impress, especially when it comes to PC gamers, since every year PC gamers had quality control over their games. This is supposed to be the next generation of gaming. We want to have a great performance experience as we should have with every other game we played. Realistic graphics, 1080p and above quality textures, physics, resolution, and etc. 60 and above frames per second for a smooth, lifelike fluent gameplay, and many interesting gameplay mechanics and features in a game depending on what game it is. It's where gamers want everything in the game once they've purchased it. They don't want any DLC BS because that should all just come with the game in the first place. If there is DLC, it should be free, which they did say they were going to do if they release new things. All under the price of $60. Everyone knows that EA sucks, and most of EA's games that are released are incomplete and don't deserve to cost $60, not even $30. I want Roller Coaster Tycoon World to have more than everything that the previous games had, and not just multiplayer. But if Roller Coaster Tycoon World is basically just Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 with multiplayer on it, then it's not something to get excited about. Because like I said, multiplayer is not a new feature for games, and it's definitely not something specifically for this type of game. I mean, it does sound cool to visit other people's parks once they have them online so you can rate, comment their work. But if that's the only new thing, then it's barely going to be any different from the last game, and it's a huge ripoff. I mean, Theme Park Studio costs $30 on Steam. That's the regular price, plus they made it clear that the program was in early development because it had early access. It was clear that it was in a development stage so that the community would help add and build up the game. And I'm not just talking about how much the game should cost. I'm talking about the overall content it should contain. And speaking again about graphics, it should have an over 10-year graphic leap. Because even the first screenshots, their graphics don't look that impressive at all. And as Atari said in their blog, they said we want the game to have the rides look realistic as if you saw them in real life. So I would also expect them to add an Oculus Rift support feature. Okay, I have 3 more topics left. I'll now talk about the current reception. Every Roller Coaster Tycoon World gameplay teaser video on YouTube has mostly negative ratings. Even so many of the comments criticizing the video for its poor appeal have over 100 likes. Hell, even some comments have over 400 likes. They weren't just criticizing how the game looked and not just how it works, but they were also criticizing the bad quality of the video trailer itself. As I mentioned before, the bad frame rate and the bad editing had an overall poor message. And it's not just that. People even made videos where they were criticizing the trailer and Atari's business practices. They were criticizing the blogs, and in fact, they talked about things I've previously said about the blogs and the trailer. Even people who made comments that were defending the trailer got high-rated replies and backed themselves up on why the trailer was factually disappointing. There was even a guy who made fun of it by making a short funny animation about it. He also made his own rants about it as well. If you want to see the animation, just click on the annotation you see here if you have annotations on. The video is hilarious. It's probably what Atari is doing in a nutshell, in a joking way of course. Now, speaking of disappointing, I'm now going to talk about popular AAA game franchises that a whole lot of people in the world really loved because they were great IPs, but they got ruined. Because either the fanboys and or the horrible business practices by the management structures of the companies. I mean, just look at EA Sports. Every new game has mostly gotten worse because they removed features from the previous games that made them great and advanced in an appealing way. But better yet, look at Electronic Arts themselves. Look what they did to The Sims and the SimCity franchise. The difference here is that EA did something even worse. They had the original developers of those franchises, which is Maxis. At the release date of both the new SimCity game and Sims 4, the games were complete disasters. DRM, because EA is greedy, they were even douchebags to their customers. EA controlled Maxis to force them to put horrible mechanics and policies to those games. The worst that they did with the game is that they completely shut down Maxis, the original developers. They are long gone now, all because of EA. Another example, look at what EA did to Mass Effect 3. Even though it was developed by BioWare, they were still under EA when they made Mass Effect 3. The ending pissed off so many people as each ending is no different regardless of what choices you make. The only difference is that what fate you want the galaxy to have, but it doesn't really affect the game whatsoever. EA is extremely infamous for releasing incomplete, rushed, horribly plotted, buggy, cash grab games. Another example of a great franchise ruined. Mega Man. Capcom is also guilty of being a terrible company. Their business practices led them to having a low amount of money. They cancelled Mega Man Legends 3, they didn't put Mega Man in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, even though fans had him at the highest demand, and then a producer lied by saying no one was interested in Mega Man being in the game. And the Mega Man they put into Street Fighter x Tekken was the stupid box art Mega Man who looks like garbage. And only Nintendo did Mega Man right with Smash Bros. On the Wii U. All these cherished and treasured popular franchises have spiritual successors to bring the loved game genres back to life, which I am now going to talk about. Again, going back to Mega Man, you know how that series has been destroyed because of the stupid things Capcom did? Well, those stupid reasons are why a new game IP exists. That game is the spiritual successor to Mega Man. It is known as none other than Mighty Number 9. Another great example. Remember what I said about City Skylines and SimCity? Well, people were pleased with City Skylines. That game did succeed with everything that SimCity 2013 failed to do. City Skylines, which uses the same engine as what they say Roller Coaster Tycoon World is going to utilize, City Skylines turned out to be amazing even before the game came out. It's what most of the SimCity fans are recommending on Steam. City Skylines is the new SimCity. I'll tell you, SimCity is the closest to being a game like Roller Coaster Tycoon, as it's a simulation building game. If the original SimCity franchises had a spiritual successor for the new generation, then it might happen with the Roller Coaster Tycoon franchise as well. According to rumors, the people that developed Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 is making another theme park building game in 2016. Yes, Frontier is back, people. They also made a mobile game that was way better than that stupid Roller Coaster Tycoon 4 mobile garbage. Coaster crazy. For a mobile coaster building game, it was great. Now Frontier say they might be making a game called Coaster Park Tycoon. I tell you, if Roller Coaster Tycoon World fails, then Coaster Park Tycoon is our only hope. Mighty Number 9 succeeded Mega Man, City Skylines succeeded SimCity, and Coaster Park Tycoon might succeed Roller Coaster Tycoon World. All the fans of these original game series really enjoyed these new spiritual successor IPs. You know why? Because the companies that owned these games made stupid management structure business practices destroying these original IPs. So other companies have to make their own to bring the great genres back to life. Even though IPs can't really die, that's another thing. Did you know that Atari wasn't the original publisher of the Roller Coaster Tycoon series? The first game was originally published by Hasbro. The second game was published by Infogrames. Atari just bought out the Roller Coaster Tycoon franchise, and they're probably going to ruin it with this new game. The same is for the Sims and the SimCity franchises. Even though the original developers are shut down, the IPs can't just die out. The publishers just have to give it to someone else, or another company has to buy it. People hope that Nintendo will buy out the Capcom games if Capcom goes out of business. So either another company buys out the Roller Coaster Tycoon IP and treat it better, and or Frontier makes this new Coaster Park Tycoon a success. Oh, and also, remember what I said about Atari having a small amount of money for hiring a small company? Remember what I said about the engine? You know how Chris Sawyer had his own engine, and how I tried to find out the engine for Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 but didn't find out what it was? Yes, Atari had to use a third-party engine rather than their own engine. Now I know what you guys are thinking, but Darkstar City Skylines uses the same third-party engine. Guys, here's the difference. City Skylines doesn't use the same IP as SimCity, while Roller Coaster Tycoon World has the same original IP using a third-party engine rather than their own. I know it might save up the work, but it just further proves that Atari is either lazy and or very poor. That is it for this rant. I predict that this next game will fail, but I really hope it doesn't. And to the people that dare say I'm not a fan, you're a moron. If I wasn't a fan of this game, I wouldn't demand this next game to be good. The same should say for the people that gave the negative feedback to the teaser, because they too want the game to be good. If they weren't fans, they wouldn't care about giving the game any quality control whatsoever. I'm Darkstar Archangel, thanks for watching this video. I hope that you people and this game have an extraordinary, successful future.